Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa. Thank you so much, Suji, for having me here, and thank you all for being here on this Thursday. It's so great to have an event here in this area. I'm from Hayward, so not too far, but I commute this way all the time, so I see this place off of the freeway. Never been here, so it's my first time, so it's great to be here. So as Suji mentioned, I work at a company called Langflow. Langflow is the product. Technically, we are DataStax, which just got acquired by IBM, but instead of going through the whole chain of explanation, I just say save the explanation, and I work on the Langflow project. So through today's talk, I hope to show you the coolness of Langflow, how you can build AI agents using Langflow. I'll even do a little bit of primer of MCP before we go into the next talk. So we'll see a bunch of cool projects and demos through there. So again, I'm Melissa. I'm a developer relations engineer, just like Suji mentioned as well. He said that he just took on a new role. So what exactly is a DevRel engineer? We exactly what the name says. We relate to the developers. We build apps as developers would on our on our tools. We create sample apps. We create content, all to relate and give context and give tools for the developers so that they can easily get on our tools as well. So Langflow is our tool. Here's where to reach me. So if you want to contact me and have conversations after, feel free to do so. And here's the agenda for today. I wanted to set some foundational topics, talk about agents, specifically multi-agent architecture, and we'll show what that looks like in Langflow. But first, of course, what is Langflow? We're going to do a bit of an overview. And then we're going to talk about the agent components, the tool components. We'll do some demos. And then we'll show where Langflow is currently at with MCP and its capabilities. So a lot in store. Okay, so first I wanted to level set. Who knows what an agent is? Raise your hand. Okay. Ish. I like the honesty. So I have it in like 3 bullet points here. So agents are an AI that has the ability to use tools. I think that's like one-liner of how I like to say it. Contrary to how you would have a simple basic prompt, if I were to give a request to a basic prompt, models are only trained on the knowledge and the data that we've trained it on, right? It doesn't have access to real-time data. For example, if I want to ask what's the weather today, or what's the current exchange rates, you know, if you were to ask GPT-4o, it won't be able to get that knowledge. So you can ask something like an agent and equip it with something like tools. Tools bridge the gap between your agent and the external world. So maybe an API, maybe something that talks to your Gmail and does tasks for you, or creates GitHub issues and has communication with that. So although agents, they still use models and LLMs to perform the reasoning and the planning and the actions itself. So agents themselves, they still use models in the background, but they have a little bit of a difference in how they are architected, right? So here's a diagram that I took from a Google paper titled Agents. It was released about 6 months ago, but at this point, it's kind of outdated. But I still like to reference it because I think this is a really easy diagram to explain what an agent is. You think about the agent runtime and the parts that are within. You still have the model. So I can use something like OpenAI's GPT-4o, Anthropic Claude, even local models. And it still uses that to now perform, to understand the natural language of the request that the user is giving the agent. The agent runtime also has an orchestration layer. So the goals, the system prompt, the instructions that you give it. It also has memory. So if you're having a conversation with the memory, with the agent in sequential order, you can say, what is it saying? And it'll know what it means, right? And then this concept of tools. And what could those tools be? Tools can range from a variety of things. I mentioned APIs. You can build custom tools. You can do vector databases if you want to perform some RAG retrieval. And now MCP is also a new thing that you can also give an agent as a tool. So we know what an agent is now. what are multi-agents, or what's one way to look at a multi-agent architecture? We go from something like this, so this is just one agent, to now something like this. So we have this idea of an orchestrator or decision maker agent, right? I mean, it's called a lot of different ways. Some people say planning agent as well. But the whole idea here is that user has a query that goes to a centralized agent, and then this centralized agent has several sub-agents that are specialized in specific tasks, and you give that centralized agent those agents as its tools. So back to my example earlier, maybe I have a Gmail agent that's focused on handling my Gmail tasks, so reading my emails, sending emails, etc. And then I have another agent that's focused on drafting meeting notes for my documents. And each of those agents have its own models, its own runtime and ability to reason, act, and plan. And then it also prevents the orchestrator agent from getting confused for all the different tools that it has under its belt. And if we have time, we'll go into a little bit more about some pitfalls with managing multi-agent architecture. So, multi-agents in Langflow. Firstly, what is Langflow? Off the bat, you kind of notice that the visual that I just showed is kind of similar to what you're looking at here. This is our platform. It's a visual interface for AI developers who are building AI agents, but you can also create other AI workflows. So I mentioned RAG. You can also do vector stores. You can also do simple prompting. You can also have MCP capabilities, which we'll go into a little bit later. But this is basically a way for you to visualize, quickly prototype, also create MVPs on the fly even, build agents within minutes, really. It's an open source tool, so we have several ways to download it and use it. You can use the app, the desktop app that we have available for Mac users. You can also pip install it on GitHub, and we're open for contributions as well. It's Python native, so each of these components that you're looking at, though it's a visual first tool, it's not visual only. And again, we'll see what that looks like later when we go into the demo, but you have the ability to also build your own custom components in Python and also see behind the code behind the components that you see here. And we have our agent component. So what's great about Langflow is that within our components, you have this kind of granular control, such as modifying the model, such as modifying the temperature. So how precise or how creative you want the model to be when it's generating its response. You can give it different tools. So right here, I have a vector database. I have a Google Search API. I have another agent maybe. So that's where the multi-agent comes through. And then you see the response given at the end, which would be the chat output to the user. And tools, I mentioned tools. Everything in Langflow, every component that you use can then become a tool. So if I create a calculator tool or a calculator component, I can give that as a tool to my agent. I can even build flows within Langflow that then can become tools for my agent. So we'll see what that looks like just now. So let me hop into a quick demo just to visualize this and actually put it into action. This is Langflow. I'm gonna go and create a new flow. Awesome. Okay, so this is a simple agent workflow. So we have a bunch of templates within Langflow that you can use to get started. So here you notice we have our agent component. So I can go into my agent component. I can use different models. All you need is your API key. So if I wanted to use Anthropic, I can use Anthropic. If I want to use Google, any Gemini models, then I can use those as well. For the demo, I'm just going to use OpenAI. And you can also put in and store various API keys that you have as global variables. And then within the agent, I also have other controls. So I can control the amount of tokens. I can control the temperature like you saw. I can control the timeouts as well. So there are different controls and configurations within the agent, bless you, that I have access to. And in this simple agent, we have two tools already connected. So one, again, is a simple calculator. One is this URL tool. So again, if I wanted to retrieve any real-time information that needs to search the internet, then I can do that. So let's put that into action. Oh, and then on the left side too that I'm covering, these are all the components that we have already integrated. But on the very bottom here, you might notice we have a new custom component So I can go in, I can open this component, I see the code behind it, I can contribute my own integrations, and then use those into in my flows. So for example, if I wanted to make this a count char, I want to count the characters in my input, just as an example. Like this, and then I'm just going to change the name of the component. All right, so you see that's already shown here. You can run each of these components, and then you see it was able to do that. So that's really how each of these components are implemented as well. So this calculator component, if you go in, open the code, you see the operators, add, subtract, and so on. So let me try out this agent for you by doing that in the playground. The playground allows you to test out your flows. So for example, okay, 2 plus 2, we should expect the agent to then use the calculator tool, which it is, and then we get a result. I want to ask a question that maybe OpenAI, ChatGPT wouldn't be able to get if I were just to prompt the model itself. Maybe what are the current exchange rates? And it should use the URL tool, which it is, fetch content. And there you see the current exchange rates. So then you can ask it things that use multiple tools. So convert 200 USD to euro, for example. Oh, and it did it fast. So I can drop down, I can inspect the agent, I can see the process and the steps that it went through. Let's see one of these. And then you see the input, you see the API that it actually used to fetch the content, and then the output as well. So that is an example of a simple agent within Langflow. And you can definitely build on top of these. You can build multi-agents above this as well. So for example, if you wanted to bring another agent into this and create that multi-agent workflow, then I would turn this agent into a tool. And once you've configured it with its own tools and what you want this agent to specialize in, then you can connect it as a tool to the centralized agent. So that's one example for agents in Langflow. All right. So let's talk about MCP in Langflow. Who knows what MCP is? Cool. Okay, about 20%? Yeah. The best analogy that I've heard is that MCP is the USB hub of AI, or like APIs, right? So the same way that I have this USB-C connected to my laptop and it's an HDMI connector, I don't care what's going on in between that. All I know is that I connect my USB-C, it's going to connect to this TV. Same with a charger. USB-C could be a charger. USB-C could be an adapter to a hard drive or something. It doesn't matter. All you know is that it's connected via USB-C. With MCP, the difference, MCP is a protocol that a lot of services are using now, so that you, as an agent or folks who are building on agents, they can just easily connect to MCP as tools using this standardized protocol. So in Langflow, we're also supporting that as well by allowing users to build their agents using MCP servers as tools. So we now have an MCP server component where, as a user, I can go into the GitHub MCP server registry, and I can pick a MCP server there, and then configure it into my MCP server component, hook it up to an agent, and then now I'm using that as a tool. Langflow itself can also be an MCP server. So I can create and build flows in Langflow, and then expose those Langflow flows as MCP servers. So a lot of servers, a lot of client talk, but it'll make a lot more sense when you see it in person, when you see the demo. And then you can expose these flows to popular clients such as Cursor and Claude. So let's actually see that. And I'm going to show it using a little bit more of a complex workflow. So, okay, I know I have some students here, so this might be a little bit helpful. I'm demonstrating an app that I built called ResumeAI. It's an app where you give it your desired role that you're trying to apply to, as well as your current resume. So for example, if you have a resume that's a student or you're a software engineer, but maybe you want to go into something like developer relations. So developer relations, and here is a software engineering role. Here they have their experience, their education in computer science, etc. But of course, when you're applying for those jobs, you have to put certain keywords based on the role that you're applying to, and you need to go and do some research on what the current certifications are for that role, etc., that you want to apply to your resume. So that's what's happening here. In the background, there are two things happening. So the first process is it's going to look at the resume, the current resume, then it's going to look at the desired role, and then it's going to suggest the recommendations and improvements that you would need to apply to your resume if you wanted to apply to that role. And then the second process is it's going to then return a pretty much first draft version of that resume to you so that you could see what that looks like on your resume. In the background, when you press submit, it's executing this flow here. So let's walk through this, knowing what we know now about multi-agents, knowing what we kind of know about some MCP servers in Langflow, what's going on. So again, the user input is 2. We have a chat input, which is just the desired role. We have a file input, which is the user's resume. And it's going all the way here to that centralized orchestrator agent where I have a prompt that's basically telling it, your resume AI, this is what you're supposed to do. You have 2 processes. One is suggesting, one is building the resume. And then, I'm giving it like important things to remember, like make sure to return the modified resume. The user has already uploaded, you can prompt the model as nicely and or as angrily as you would like to. And then on the bottom here is the output format that I'm expecting. And then here's the first process where it is actually building the resume. So very simple prompt here. I'm just saying, read the resume, put it into Markdown format, and then return it back and then apply those recommendations that you get from the user. And then this is all an agent that's specialized in doing that task. And then I have another agent here that's focused on doing the suggestions. But notice I have a MCP connection component here as a tool for this agent. So this specific MCP connection is called Tably. They are an AI web search tool, so you can use it for web searching and then returning that, scraping the information and giving it to your agents as context. So for this specific prompt, I'm saying, you are giving suggestions as specialized in resume optimization. Use the Tably search MCP server to look up things like job requirements of 2025, resume keywords and such, and then apply that to your recommendations for the user. And then it's doing those things in process and then giving that back to the orchestrator agent, then output to the user. So what does that look like? So we go back to the app, we see the resume improvement suggestions. So this person over here, John Doe, he wants to be a software engineer. He's a software engineer, but he wants to be a developer relations engineer. So it's giving him some trending skills, keyword optimization, so dev advocacy, community engagement, etc. So those are all pretty true. And then some specific recommendations, immediate resume updates. So it's actually pretty good. It's getting things that are up to date. And then if you scroll all the way down, there's that second task where it actually returned back a modified version of the resume and applied some of the improvements there for you as well. So as I mentioned, once I press submit, it invoked the flow. But how did it do that? What's great about Langflow is that I can easily publish the flows that I build. On the top right here, you see, go to API access. And here's the Python APIs, SDKs, and JavaScript, and we have curl as well. But for this app specifically, I just needed Python. This is a really simple Streamlit app that I built. And then I brought those in. I created a function here that is literally the same call that you just saw. And where input value is the desired role from the user that they input, and then the file of their current resume. So once the user clicks submit, it fires off the run Langflow API, and that's it. It just triggered the flow in the background, and then in the end, we get the results as the response to the user. So it's really easy to build these complex looking flows and ideas with Langflow and then use them as features in your applications. So as a developer, I have maybe an idea for a feature. I can iterate through that, visualize it here in Langflow, publish it, and then you can spend a lot more time focusing on other parts of your application because the AI stuff is taken care of here in Langflow. Here's another example of using MCP. All right, so I'm going to open this code reviewer agent. So here's another way to structure your multi-agent architectures. This one is more of like a daisy chain where I'm feeding one response to the agent to the next. In this specific agent, it's a code reviewer. So I want it to review the code, parse it as best as it can, detect any issues that it has. Also using Tavily once again as an MCP server to obtain maybe documentation, search the internet maybe for some context in order to diagnose any issues, and then generate me a report in the end. So in the playground, you could see that here's an example of it doing so. It generates a report for me. It gives me back a code example, a summary. Here are some links to documentation. So that's really cool. But how do I actually use this in other MCP clients? I mentioned that Langflow can also be an MCP server in itself, right? So if I go into publish and click now MCP server, I'm given the config here, which allows me to bring this into any client that is supporting of MCP. So the flows, the projects that you see on the left side, all of these can be packaged up as MCP servers with the flows that you've built inside those projects as tools. So what that means is if I go into the MCP tab and edit the actions, these are all the flows that I have. These are essentially the tools. And then I can rename them. The best way is for agents to know how to use your tools as well is to give them proper names and proper descriptions so it knows how to use them, when to use them, and why. So the code reviewer agent you see is here. And if I wanted to bring this into, say, a cursor, who's used cursor before? Yeah, nice, really helpful. Me too. It's been my go-to. I know people are like on the windsurf hype and things like that, but we can argue later. So you just go to mcp.json, you drop it here. So I already have the configuration here, but you would really just need this, and then drop it into the config just like that. You need a comma. Yep. So of course it notices that we have the other one here already configured, so I'm going to remove that. And then you'll end up seeing it in your cursor settings as we do here. So giving me yellow, but there you see the project, MCP demo, and you see all of the flows that I've built inside of it as tools. So now when I'm using this in cursor, for example, I can highlight a line, add it to the chat below, and then I'm going to say review this code. And we're going to hope, yep, that it invokes the right tool, which it did, which is the code reviewer agent. And then we can run this tool. And then in the background, what it's doing is that it's going to the flow. We can see this is the request that it just sent from cursor into the playground, and it's going through the steps of that flow as we speak now. And how do I actually configure a server like this in Langflow? I just bring in a tool here. We have two ways to connect, so stdio and SSE. So I like to go into the GitHub registry here for MCP servers. I used Tavily as an example, but like for example, there's a ton here that I just like to browse through, but I want to use this one that handles charts. I think it's called Quick Chart. Yep. Here's an easy example to bring in. Scroll down to where you find the stdio or npx startup command, just like this. And then all I need to do is highlight, copy this part over, go back to my Langflow, and then I just bring that same command in, refresh, and now we see that tool available in my flow. And then when I want to use it, of course, put it into tool mode, and then I can hook this up to one of my agents, just like that. So now we see the capabilities of Langflow as both an MCP client, so us bringing in MCP servers to use in our flows, to use in our agents as tools, but also an MCP server, where I expose this flow as a tool that I want to use in something like Cursor. So if I actually go to Cursor now, it was able to return me the response that I just did from that flow. And what's great about this too is I got this comment from the last talk that I did where I gave this same talk, is that you are able to kind of repurpose and aggregate different MCP servers in Langflow and build other flows like this where you're utilizing several MCP servers and then expose that whole thing as a MCP server in itself. So you can really build a lot of things here with Langflow, especially when you're just exploring MCP servers. All right, I think that was all I have of that. Okay, how much time do I have, Suji? Okay, good. I'll just kind of fly by this section then. These are just some implementation challenges with multi-agents that are solved with Langflow. One of them that I kind of mentioned earlier is, I'm just gonna skip through this pitfall. Actually, so this is overestimating the agent's capabilities. So again, our agents are still powered by the LLMs with the same strengths as them. So we have to know that agents are not magic in itself. We still have to give them the detailed instructions that we would to a regular LLM. And we're able to do that in Langflow with the proper components, such as the prompt component here, where you can give different variables as you saw previously. Another thing to note is tool overload, which is why a key reason why you would use something like multi-agent architecture. Using multi-agent architecture allows you to then name the tools, define them, give them proper descriptions, as I said earlier, and then you have this centralized decision maker agent that's knowing when to pull the tools for the right task. So for example, something like this, where I have the orchestrator agent attached to several components that it's kind of like messy-minded here. I can now restructure that, put them into their own agents that specialize, that have their own reasoning, and then give that to the agent as its tools. And lastly, I kind of went over this, it's like beating a dead horse, but poor tool implementation and description it goes with the first thing of making sure that your agents know what it's doing and what tools it has available. So if you give your generic, you give your tool a name like email tool, something very generic, it might use it for something else for another reason. So still name them, give them the proper naming conventions and the proper descriptions that you would so that it knows how to use it essentially. So doing that in Langflow is really easy, as I showed. So you can configure that, name the tools, name the description as you would. All right, that was a quick overview of Langflow, how to build on it. I have two QR codes here. One is, the one on the left is to download Langflow. So if you want to download the app or pip install it from GitHub, give us some stars as well. We would appreciate it. And on the right, it's our community Discord. So if you want to stay connected with us, talk to people like me through there, and join the community, you are welcome. So I'll give a few more seconds. And yeah, that was it. Thank you.